If I told you that a single piece of bread could transform a boy who had nothing into one of the richest men in his region, would you believe me? His name was Daniel. He was just a child abandoned, lost, without a family, without a home, without anyone. He slept on the streets. He went hungry every day. And in his eyes was a silence only someone who has suffered deeply can carry. But everything changed the day a humble girl named Sofia decided to share with him the only piece of bread she had to eat. And that simple act would change both of their destinies forever. In a distant region, surrounded by green hills and fields where the wind made the leaves dance slowly, there was a small town forgotten by time. A place where life seemed to happen at its own pace. Where mornings smelled of coffee brewed in cloth, and afternoons ended with the sun hiding behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. There people lived simply, often with very little, yet carrying a peace only those who have learned to live with humility know. In the center of that town there was a small, quiet square, with an old bench and a large tree that offered shade on hot afternoons. Nearby, a calm river flowed, reflecting the world as if it were a mirror. This was the setting where a touching story would begin to unfold. Daniel was just a child when life decided to be harsh with him. He had no family, or if he ever did, that memory was long gone. He grew up on the streets, walking alone on cold sidewalks, seeking shelter wherever he could, and food wherever it was possible. His bare feet carried the weight of a childhood that should never have been like this. His stomach growled almost every day, and his eyes carried the gaze of someone who had seen too much suffering for someone so young. But inside this boy, fragile on the outside but strong on the inside, there was a dream. A simple dream. He did not wish for wealth, greatness, or fame. He longed for something that might seem ordinary to many, but for him it was everything: a warm bed, a plate of food, and someone to call him by name with affection. That was his greatest desire. He only wanted a place where he belonged. In the same town lived Sofia, a humble girl from a simple family. She lived in a small wooden house with her mother and younger brother, who was sick and required constant care. Despite leading a difficult life, Sofia had something precious: a huge heart. A heart capable of seeing what many pretended not to notice. She believed that even when one has little, it is still possible to share, and that no one should be ignored just because the world was cruel to them. One day, while walking to school with her small piece of bread wrapped in a cloth, Sofia passed by the square and saw a boy sitting on the ground, hugging his knees. It was Daniel. His skin was pale, his face tired, and his eyes were empty, as if the world had taken all hope from him. Sofia's heart tightened. She didn't ask questions. She didn't judge. She simply sat beside him and, with a silent gesture, shared her bread. Half for her, and half for him. At that moment, Daniel felt something he had forgotten existed: kindness. It was the first time in a long while that someone looked at him not as a burden, not as a problem, not as nothing, but as a person. The next day, Sofia returned. And the day after that. And the next. Sometimes with bread. Sometimes with fruit. Sometimes just with a smile, because for someone who has never received affection, a smile is food too. And always before leaving, she would softly say, "One day, everything will get better. You just have to believe." Those words etched themselves into Daniel's soul. And when life seemed unbearable, it was that phrase he repeated to himself like a prayer, a reminder that hope still existed. But fate sometimes separates before it unites. Sofia's mother fell gravely ill, and the family had to move to another city in search of treatment. There was no farewell, no hug, no explanation. And so Daniel returned to solitude. But this time, something inside him had changed. He was not completely empty. He carried a flame within him, a flame called hope. Over time, Daniel grew up. He worked wherever he could, did heavy labor, stayed up all night to earn a few coins. He washed cars, carried boxes, swept sidewalks, served tables. He did everything to keep going. Until he found a job at a small mechanic shop. There, he observed. He learned. He absorbed every detail. He understood how things worked. With effort, discipline, and a determination that came from deep within, he opened his own workshop. At first, it was small, simple, and almost no one believed it would succeed. But Daniel believed, and that faith moved mountains. The workshop grew. It became a company, then a group of companies. Daniel did not just survive. He thrived, and he became very wealthy. But money never erased his memories. He was still, deep down, the boy from the square who once received half a piece of bread. As an adult, successful, Daniel felt a calling. He needed to find Sofia. He returned to that town. He searched for stories, traces, memories, until someone told him where she lived. The house was small, worn by time, but it had flowers in the window. Living flowers. Flowers cared for by hands full of love. When Sofia opened the door, Daniel recognized her gaze immediately. Years had passed, but her kindness still shone as it always had. He told her everything. Everything she had done for him. How that bread and those words saved his life. How he grabbed that hope and built his future from it. Sofia cried. Life had also been hard on her. Her brother was still sick. She worked tirelessly. Sometimes there was still not enough to eat. Daniel, without hesitation, helped. He paid for her brother's treatment, renovated the house, secured a steady income, and offered Sofia a respectable position in his company. Sofia tried to refuse, saying it made no sense, that she had done so little. But Daniel replied, You gave me hope when I had nothing, and hope has no price. From that day on, their lives walked together. Not out of obligation, but by destiny. Because when goodness is real, it always finds its way back. Moral of the story. Kindness is never small. It is never wasted. It is never forgotten. Sometimes sharing a piece of bread is the same as saving an entire life.